y'all stay in here tonight if there's, looks like 2 of you so far.
"477, one of my kind of favorite comfort songs. Just has a good message to it as we think about the Steele and the Couch families tonight. There is a place of quiet rest. There is a place of quiet rest near to the heart of God, a place where sin cannot molest, near to the heart of God. Oh, Jesus, blessed Redeemer, sent from the heart of God, hold us who wait before thee, near to the heart of God. There is a place of comfort sweet, near to the heart of God, a place where we our Savior meet, near to the heart of God. Hold us who wait, Redeemer, sent from the heart of God. Hold us who wait before thee, near to the heart of God. There is a place of full release, near to the heart of God, a place where all is joy and peace, near to the heart of God. Oh, Jesus, blessed Redeemer, sent from the heart of God, hold us who wait before thee, near to the heart of God.
All right. I have a problem. If you want to run this bike, and you can figure it out, move for it. We'll talk about that bike in a bit. All right, so as many of you know, I went on my 3rd adventure in the last couple of years to on the Great. You know, you see here that it's kind of my first. Thought, flashback is really that God created the heavens and the earth. And you know, when Terry talks about we live in paradise, and when we just step back and look and appreciate our lives and appreciate the surroundings, you know, everything that's around us, we could really just appreciate God's creation. We can appreciate being God's children. We can appreciate what we have ahead of us, and that's really a home in heaven. So this was really, you know, Psalms 19:1, heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims its handiwork, that God is the architect. He created everything. And I think of the plan, that there was a plan for us from the beginning, and then God put that into motion, and we see, you know, over time, we see the sacrifice that Jesus made for us, and that plan fulfilled. And now knowing that we have that blessing in our lives, it is truly a blessing, right? I mean, it's something as Christians we can really sink our teeth into and say, yes, this is, you know, I have hope. So This was my favorite picture of the whole trip. When I was on the Appalachian Trail, you know, I would go down and it's like, wow, that is awesome. And then you go a little bit farther, it's like, whoa, that's even better than what I just saw. And this was a shot in Colorado. I rode up on it. I said, wow, you've got to be kidding. And it really represents to me the glory of God, the beauty of His creation. And if you just take time to step back and appreciate it, and it's not just this picture or the situation. Again, it's appreciating our lives and where we're at as Christians and in our walk. But this really, in my mind, it doesn't apply. And this picture, you know, I show you pictures, and they don't do them, you know, well, justice, right? Doris takes all these pictures, you know, but when you see it, it really has a different effect on you. All right. So let the adventure begin. All right, so Brenda. Brenda is a nurse. When I go to Honduras and do the work in Honduras, Brenda is a nurse that works with us. And this is her saying, I can medicate crazy, but I can't fix stupid. You know, and she's dealing with like 100 kids and adults. You know, everybody thinks they know what they're doing or just have issues. And she just steps back and says, you know, don't bother me unless it's life or death. But, you know, and this is her famous saying. So this kind of applies to me as well. If you talk to Mary, this is what she does. She just shakes her head. So I'm not sure if it's crazy or just not being right or whatever it is. But, you know, Brenda says this to me all the time. All right. All right, so this is the Great Divide. I've been wanting to do this. Well, I did the Bike Across America, right? And that was something I had planned on doing for a long, long time. And then a couple of years later, it's like, wow, I wonder if there's something else out there. So I called up my buddy and said, hey, have you heard about the Great Divide, this mountain bike route that exists? And they said, no, what is that? So that was the start of it. I lured them in. You know, because we were successful on the Bike Across America, I lured them into doing the Great Divide. It started in New Mexico, Antelope Wells, which is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it is absolutely, there's a border crossing right there, but that's it. The logistics to get to Hachita and then down to Antelope Wells was just, you know, a nightmare. So it went from New Mexico, we cruised up through Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho. When we got to Idaho, I said, what are we doing in Idaho? I said, I didn't even know we were supposed to be crossing into this state. So when I started, I didn't even know that Idaho was going to be part of the map. It was. So three of us that rode together, and 2,400 miles, and we did it in 6 weeks. I did not injure myself during this time. I played softball the other day. I ran down first baseline, 30 feet down the baseline, I pulled a muscle. So how can you go 2,400 miles and, you know, just be fine, and then, you know, 30 seconds and injure yourself? I don't know. So this is, all right, so there are a lot of people that were involved in this project. So Marcia was one. I needed my quilt to be sewed to this different piece. It's it needed to be put together, and I just needed somebody that could sew, and that wasn't me. So Marcia came to my rescue. That was part of it. And Tracy did some work for some stenciling and stuff. I had to put my bike in that box in the bottom because I scheduled my ticket, and I said, okay, no problem. I'll put my bike in a box and we'll ship it. You know, ship it to this El Paso, and I'll figure out how to get from El Paso to Hachita. Well, the box that I had to pack it in was this big, this wide, and about this deep. So that bike got scrunched and put into that box. And when I got there, it went a different route. I went one way, and it went up to Colorado and around and stuff. Like 4 or 5 hours later, it showed up at the airport, which is like, you know, a nightmare for me. And you can tell that box is beat up. So the first step was just trying to figure out if I had all the parts still in the box to put my bike back together. And back at the border crossing, which is the start of the ride, the border crossing in New Mexico is a whole lot different than the border crossing up in Canada. I'll tell you this. In New Mexico, it's only open from like 9 o'clock to 5 or something like that. They have, you know, banker's hours. And up in Canada, it's just a different thing. It's like 24/7. All right, this is me, by the way. I get asked all the time, how do you train? How do you train in Florida to ride through the mountains? And I put Philippians 4:13 on my bike. It's just a reminder for every day. It's like, you know what? God, if you have God in your life, you can accomplish many things. Not just a bike ride, but a lot of things in your life you can accomplish if you keep the right perspective. And you have God on your mind and follow God's word. You can do a lot of things, right? So that was on my bike. It's still there. And it was just an encouragement to me. But you can see that I froze to death. It's 90s here, high humidity. When I left New Mexico, it was actually really nice. It was 102 for us. The two guys that were from South Dakota and New Jersey, New Hampshire, didn't really appreciate the hot weather. But it's like, oh, this is kind of like Florida. But that didn't last very long, because pretty soon we were like climbing up into the mountains. And it averaged in the morning high 20s and low 30s, and we were like riding through the snow and stuff all the time. That's what I looked like all the time. I was freezing to death. So how do you train if you're in Florida? It's not so much about the exercise. It's being able to sit on the saddle for 8 hours a day. And if you can sit on a saddle, if you ever tried to ride your bike and half hour into the bike, it's like, wow, this is not very comfortable. You know what I mean. So, if you can do 8 hours a day, then good. So really, I prepare. I'd be like 3,500 miles before I even hit the trail, from January to May, and then I had some good base miles in. I was good to go, and the rest is just putting on lots of clothes and stuff on them. They laughed at me. I'd come out looking like that, and the guy from South Dakota's out there, shorts and a T-shirt, and he. Let me tell you, when you're riding, one thing that you think about is food, because you're hungry all the time. On the Appalachian Trail, it's even more of an issue that you just can't get enough food. You just shed weight so quick. Anytime you're hiking, you just can't get enough food. But when you're biking, at least you can get to a town every once in a while. And one of the highlights on the map was Pie Town. I said, Pie Town, all right. I got to go to Pie Town. Pie Town's going to be a stop for us. And sure enough, it was a stop. And you can see I'm really happy right there. I got a big smile on my face, because I had the biggest breakfast, and actually I ate the pie, I think, before I actually had my food. So it was good. Pie Town. To prepare for this slide, I was like, well, how many animals are there in the Bible? And I was surprised at how many actually animals are called out when you read through the Bible, how many animals there are, right? So like all these here were mostly covered. The snakes are an issue for me. Even though you don't see the next slide, it's like, And Mr. Ed right there is cool. That donkey off to the side who just let me walk right up to him. And I'm from the city, by the way. I don't, animals. I'm like sneaking up on it, and then I took a selfie and I'm out of there, right, real quick. But it's amazing the wildlife that you see when you're out there and you're doing things. Just like anywhere, when you drive around, you see something different. And that was really different for me as well, just seeing the different wildlife. The moose and the elk was there were all kinds of elk and stuff. If you've ever been elk hunting or just seen elk out in the wild, they're just beautiful, beautiful animals. So obviously the heat got to me a little bit one day. And I'm not sure actually what happened to that snake, why he let me pick him up like he did, but he was alive. So I did. I thought it would be a great picture for us. All right. This is what it's like when, you complain about Sarasota traffic, right? We get out there, the snowbirds come back. Traffic picks up. You can't get into a restaurant. It's terrible, right? I mean, you have to wait in line to get to a restaurant. But this is what traffic is like in Colorado. I come around a bend, and they're just on the road. So what do you do? If you're from the city, if you're from the country, what would you do at this point? Well, for me, I stopped and I said, okay, you guys, you need to move. And you can see at that point, they just all turned towards me and started looking at me. They didn't move a bit. So after 10 minutes, after a stare off and stuff, I eased up and they stood there. I eased up a little bit more, they stood there. Eventually I got up courage to kind of ride between them, and they were not happy about it, but I survived. This was the weirdest thing. All right, so let's talk about, when we have faith, when we really have faith in God, we can accomplish many, many things, right? In God's creation and God's just his purpose for us, and we have faith in that, in him, and apply it to our lives, faith just makes us stronger. Faith makes us, you hear it, but if you see it as well, and you start growing in your faith, and you start looking at your faith, how can I increase my faith in God? I think as Christians, we start to mature. We start to have a healthy appetite for being more like Christ in our lives. And when you're constantly out there, and you're constantly reminded that, there's this beauty, that God's creation, or that God is there for me, or I have instructions in my lives through his word, then our faith starts to increase. And when our faith increases, we are better for it. When we have faith in our God and we're obedient to God, we will have a home with him in heaven. And that's what our faith will lead to, because of God's love for us, his grace, and the sacrifice that Jesus made for us. But we got to have faith, right? And when I see that, when I'm in this occasion, when I just saw that, it just inspired me to say, you know what? God's created, it's like awesome. I can't describe how beautiful it is sometimes. When you're out on the beach, in the sunset, and all of a sudden you get this explosion of color. It's because the sun is going down, and you see that. It's just awesome, right? It's just wow. And in that moment, you really start to see, the beauty in God's creation. It's something that God has provided to us and allowed us to share. Accommodations. So we stayed in tents, because most of the time we were just out there in the middle of nowhere. Like our cell phones didn't work. Nothing worked. You're just kind of out there. You just found a place where you thought it would be good that was halfway level, and you just set up tents, and then we, just hang out for the night. It was cold, by the way, in tents. When I was, did I remember telling you the story about the Appalachian Trail and the mouse getting in my tent? And we're here from, we're in Disney, and, Disney's about Mickey Mouse and stuff, but, Mickey's cool. I like Mickey, but I don't like his cousins, So when the cousins get in my tent, it's like, ooh, that's not a good thing. So you get, there's all kinds of critters and stuff there. So I don't appreciate any of the relatives or friends and stuff that sneak around in the middle of the night. Like coyotes were extremely, irritating, because they seemed like getting closer and closer in the night. It's like, where are they really? So anyway, tents. We stayed in tents. I get asked all the time. There were some shelters. I bypassed this shelter because it was on the top of a mountain, and there were grizzly scrapes on the wall, where like taking his claws. Have you ever seen a grizzly paw? It's like bigger than a pie plate, and then claws on the side of that, and on the side of that building. So this was not, I took a picture and I kept moving. This was not a place that I wanted to stay in. Not that, my tent was going to be any better, but, there was evidence there. All right, so what do you see? This was one of the towns we went through, and this was a cabin that you could rent for the night. But what do you notice about this little building? There's no roof. There's no door. There's not any windows, but they'll let you rent it and you can stay in it. I have no idea why somebody would actually, it was really a place you could rent. What? That was an option for us that we passed on. All right, this is a video. Is it going to play? Oh. Think about the worst hotel you've ever stayed in. This was a video. It's unfortunate. I was like walking down the side of this, and it's like, it gets worse, right? There's like door, window, no window, door, caved in, window. I mean, you can kind of see through the wall as well. So this was one, we actually stayed at this facility. This was promoted as like a 3-star hotel in the paper. On the other side were actually ones that you could sleep in. They were kind of different as well, but they looked a little bit better than this. Maybe sometimes I'll publish the video so you can see it. You look at it, it's like, whoa, that's just not right. 3 stars. All right. You know, we can move mountains, right? Some guy says, we can move mountains. That's me trying that theory out of my, I was not very successful, but it was, you know, hey, I thought, you know, why would this rock be here in the middle of the road? It needs to be moved. It's kind of in my way as well. I gave it a shot. My buddy gave it a shot. It's still there. So, again, going back to faith, you need to work on faith to move mountains, right? It's important. Trials and tribulations. So I had a friend of mine this was interesting so there were 3 of us. We actually had a SAG driver too that was kind of following us and provide some supplies for us. And when you, as a Christian, you take a lot of things for granted in our lives, right? Things, a lot of times just fall in place. If you got the right perspective, don't always fall in place, but if you have, it's good to be a Christian. It's good to have God in our lives. Tom, on the other hand, has not made good decisions in his life, the gentleman I was talking to. And, but he wanted to change. And I said, this is what, I was with this gentleman for 6 weeks, right? So we got he kept asking these questions. So I just don't know what I can do. I said, well, you got to change. You got to change your life. You can't, if you want to meet somebody that's a better mate, a bar is not the best place to meet her. That's just probably not the best area to get a good date, right? I said, you start looking at Christian values. And he was starting to go to church as well. I said, then you need to read your Bible and start thinking about other people instead of yourself. And every time I kind of start telling the story and stuff, it just kind of set him back. We have to appreciate really the blessings that we have as Christians. And when you talk to individuals like that, even though they're trying, they haven't figured it out yet, right? And they're still struggling for, what's that right direction to take in my life? And we start to take some of those simple principles and stuff in your life, and you start to say, hey, maybe being more, helpful and trying to help other people instead of yourself might be a good start, right? Maybe looking for a mate that has some true values, Christian values, is a good start to help you get on the right path. So he had a lot of trials and tribulations in his life, but there were some opportunities there as well for him. So that's one of the neat things on this bike where you kind of got a captured audience. He was there, and he was like my roommate a lot of times. So, I was just, he'd say something and say, well, Tom, and I would just launch into this discussion with him. Again, it's so a blessing for us to be Christians. All right, so here were some of the conditions. Sometimes sunshine. Sometimes it was so beautiful and you're up there, high altitudes, and that sun just felt great, especially when it's 30 degrees in the morning. That sun would pop over the mountain, and it'd feel great. Rain, so it did rain a few times. That bridge that I'm standing under is because there was a big thunderstorm that came through and like lightning and stuff. It's like, I'm I'm going to take a break. This looks like a good time to take a snack break or something when we got off on this one road. That's what I look like when it's raining. Not the best look, but it's effective. And snow. When you're used to 90+ time riding and all of a sudden there's snow on the ground, you're riding through it, it just sends chills through you. Again, constant. I said, what are we doing up here? It's crazy. So trials and tribulations. I had a saddle on my bike that had at least 8,000 miles on it. It lasted through the bike across America. It had been with me for a long, long time. I'm like halfway through my ride and my saddle broke. So, talking about training and being able to sit on your saddle for 8 hours a day. Well, being able to sit on a saddle is having the right kind of saddle. And that was my 8-hour saddle, right? And when it broke, it was like, oh. Breaking in a new saddle, if you ever tried it on a new bike, whew, not good. I cried. I cried. I tried to fix it, duct tape, this and that, didn't help. I got that saddle, I survived, but when you got a good friend, you got to hold on to him for life, right? This bike took a beating. This has been repaired, but my saddle broke, the back wheel was out of true, it was like this when I got done. The brakes were shot. The chain, had to replace the chain once because it broke. My front suspension had bottomed it out so much it was having issues as well. So it's a sad story. I know you guys are crying for me right now, but I'm still trying to fix that saddle. It's important. So, and there's some danger out on the trail. And I didn't know that Bigfoot was going to be an issue, but I saw, signs of like Bigfoot all over the place, as well as grizzly bears, that type of thing. I did not see one bear, if you can believe that. I did not see one bear. Other people say, oh, you will see bears. And I said, well, hopefully, I'll see them in a distance. And somebody's seeing bears like every day, and we went cruising through there, we didn't see one. Now, there were some days that we rode over 90 miles in a day to get past through the grizzly territory so we wouldn't have to see a bear. But, so I'm thinking grizzly bears and Bigfoot. That's just, both of those things are something I want to deal with. Black bears are one thing. I'm not talking about black bears. I'm talking about grizzly bears, right? If you ever go to YouTube and see a grizzly bear attack or something, I always wanted to be in the middle. I figured, that it's not going to be ambushed, the guy in the middle. It'd be always somebody in the front or just trying to take the person off in the back. It's about the whole thing about being able to run faster than the other person. If we take time to appreciate the world around us, we will draw closer to God and fellow Christians. And I'm not, again, just talking about a bike ride. I'm talking about, as Christians, we have opportunity to appreciate what's around us. Appreciate that God is in our lives. Appreciate His Word. Appreciate fellow Christians that share that same belief and same goal. When we come together as Christians on Sunday morning, it's a blessing, right? We are here encouraging each other, and we are here worshiping God, our God, together. And we have that same thought in mind, that we want to worship that God that's so important to us. So I would challenge you to appreciate what you have, to appreciate your spouse, to appreciate your best friend, to appreciate your fellow Christians, to appreciate the fact that you are God's children. And with that appreciation, we, in your faith, as we talked about, can go closer to God. All right, this is cool. You might not think it's cool. This is cool. So this town is like the intersection point from when I did the Bike Across America, and I'm doing the Great Divide. But not only that, there's a race that goes from Banff, Canada, down to Antelope Wells. So they're going from the north to the south, and they're racing the same route that we're touring on the way up. And this year, the guy that won did it in less than like 10 days. He rode the route in 10 days. It took me 6 weeks to ride. He did it in 10 days. So I was talking to one guy. He said, well, you can tell. You can tell the ones that rode too long. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, well, because they'll just pass out. They'll fall asleep on their bike. And when you fall asleep on your bike and you fall, you don't put your hands out. Your head's the first thing that hits the ground. You better have your helmet on. So they'll come up, their face will be all beat up because they crashed. They didn't know, down they go. They ride 18 to 20 hours a day. They'll just like stop and take a break and, a couple hours and they're back on the road again racing. So this guy here is from, I met. And and the racers are young. They're not. It's not the old guy on the right. It's the guy, the kid on the left. If you're getting it confused, who's who on this picture? I'm the one on the right. So he was from Hunt Tires. I ride Hunt rims and stuff. I said, oh, hey, you're from this company and stuff. But he was actually racing down, and I got to talk to him. It was actually pretty cool, and I got a cool little letter. But this is a pretty cool town as well that we stopped in. All the racers stop in this one town. So you want to see the elite of the elite, you kind of hang out there for a little bit. You get, not me, the racers, all right. You wouldn't believe this, but I actually stop and talk to people all the time, and it just drives the other guys crazy, because I'll just like, where'd Mark go? And I'm back there talking to somebody that I just passed, or I'll slow down. This lady, Miss Laura, in the top, so we're in Wyoming, and I go into this diner, and so I start talking to this lady, Miss Laura. And Miss Laura says, well, where are you from? I said, I'm from Michigan, originally. So you are? What part of Michigan? Well, around Clarkston. Do you know where Bailey Lake School is? Yes, that's like a couple miles from my house. She was from, Miss Laura, retired in Wyoming, out in the middle of nowhere, is from my hometown in Clarkston. And she taught in Bailey Lake Elementary School at the same time I was going to school, middle school and high school. I said, you have got to be kidding me. So, Miss Laura, you never know who you will, it's a small world, right? When you go and visit other congregations and stuff, it's like you find out all the time, it's like, oh wow, you're from where? Or you know this person? Or even worse, oh, you're related to this person? I didn't know that, I shouldn't have talked about them, like I did, type thing. But so, one guy's from England, guy from Hunt, Miss Laura. It's just like some really cool acquaintances and stuff that you can talk to, and obviously it's opportunities to say why you're riding and what's important to you as well. So, who would figure? All right, I'm pretty tall, right? I mean, I'm 5'7", if. Have you ever felt really, I've always wanted to be, I thought when I was growing up, it's like high school stuff, 6 feet tall would be cool, because that'd be awesome, for a football running back would be a great size, right? And then later on, and then this type of stuff happens, right? The Titan. You see that big arrow down there and that little bitty thing down there? That's me as well. The wheels, one wheel I think they said was $40,000 a piece, one wheel to replace it. They were huge. My thought was that from that when I was standing next to this thing and I was just laughing at myself. I said, when I saw the picture, I was just like, I just started laughing. It's like, wow, that's not right. Again, when we think, and this is what I thought recently, it's like, man, when we think we're small, but we've got God on our side, we are not small, we are not weak, we are strong. because we got God on our side, right? And that changes the playing field. We are no longer that little speck. You know, it's powerful. Anybody have allergies? Oh, cannoli fields. These things were all over Montana. If you have allergies, they are brutal. I mean, they'll just almost stop you. Your sinus. It's a beautiful picture, but in reality, when you're riding a bunch of these yellow fields and stuff, it's painful because you can't. After a while, you can't breathe. And if you're trying to ride your bike and you can't really breathe, you know, it kind of slows you down a little bit. So, beautiful picture. The landscape and stuff just is breathtaking. Just another picture, my favorite picture, and there's others and stuff. I started trying, we always left before the sun came up. Why? Because the other two guys were morning people. I'm not. I just kind of went along with this, like, all right. In fact, one guy, I met this guy. I talked to another guy. He said, it was early in the morning. He said, aren't you going to say something? I said, obviously, no. I said, no. I said, you need to ride with me for another hour before I start talking to you. You know? And he just looked at me, the kind of the strangest thing. I said, I'm serious. Give me an hour. Let me ride. I started taking these pictures in the morning. It's just beautiful with the views. I probably shouldn't tell this when Mary's here. How fast did you go? What was the fastest speed? Well, I know it was over 50 miles an hour going down on that bike down one of the mountain. And I'll just say 50 plus at that point. But what was cool, they had these runaway truck ramps. I thought, hey, you know, if I get going too fast and I can't stop, I'll just hit one of the ramps. You guys, you should be shaking your head because it's like, yeah, that would not help me at all at that point. If I lose control, you know, it's hopeless. The Tetons and stuff is just beautiful. If you've ever been out, if you haven't been there, it's just breathtaking. The views, everywhere you look, it's just amazing. All right, you know, you have to appreciate this picture. You have to be creative when you got a saw attached to a little gas engine, and once you crank that little engine up, the blade starts to turn. This doesn't meet any code that you know. But he was using this to cut some wood. He used it all the time, and he still had all his fingers and hands and stuff. So it's good. I just look at this like, you have it. That's just crazy. You know, crazy or stupid. There you go. From where we start. But, you know, this is why, you know, I hang out with these people, and I guess we relate. This was really cool. We're like go west and say, hey. I guess when they were going west, you know, these wagon trains and stuff, that notch in the middle of the mountain was a waypoint for them. As long as they kept that notch as they went west in front of them, they were headed in the right direction. And they would use that landmark for 50 miles or more because it was like it's just a mountain way out there. You could see that mountain. And that was a point that you could use and navigate by. Who knew? You know, the worst thing to see when you're riding is a sign that says a pass is coming. Because a pass means that you're going to start climbing and climbing. It means you're like at 2,000 feet, you're going to end up at 9,000 feet or higher. I think the highest point in that type right corner doesn't look very high. It was like 12,000 feet. And the Berea's Pass, I was the oldest guy, by the way, on this group. And all these passes and stuff, I was usually at the top the first. I was like motivated, so I will make the top. I wasn't worth much going down because I was wore out by the time I got to the top, but every pass meant you were climbing. There was one climb, hour and a half, 10% grade, hour and a half, 10% grade. Just kept going up and up and up and up. I thought it would never stop. I have no idea where you get this many antlers from, but you're in Montana, you can make an archway of antlers. It was in a park. And eventually, I made it to Banff. And it was the best feeling to ride off and to hit. And Banff, if you've ever been to Banff, Canada, it's just, Alberta, it's like, oh, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful city. It's a tourist city. It's expensive. But you come out the path on the back side, and all of a sudden, boosh, all these buildings and stuff. And you just, it's like, wow, this is something. It's a good way to end, a successful ride. God has a plan for us, and that's for us to be faithful, to be obedient, to stick with Him to the end. And if we do that, we'll receive that reward. When I finish that, I say, yes. You're satisfied. You say, man, I feel so great because I was successful. I finished what I had set out to do. I know that's that we will feel when we finish. It's like, yes, I finished the fight. I was faithful, and we will have that reward. And we can all say, yeah, it was good. I just have a couple more pictures to share with you. I'll share a couple stories of bike. These are just some pictures that I just thought were like really cool. These were all from my iPhone, so the water was freezing. You don't see anybody swimming in the water. I think in Montana, they had a lot of fly fishermen, which was really cool. So to see that, lots of rivers and stuff. Sometimes you have to stop and look back and really to appreciate what you just accomplished. You kind of stop, reflect, look back. It's like, whoa, all right, that's pretty cool. Look what I just was able to do. There was a field of these just endless. I took just a little bit of picture, but it was a whole, I wish I had that, I could show you the field. It was beautiful. Not like that cannoli field. I mean, this was really pretty. It's like I could watch that, stay there all day. You know the difference in Canada, when you get into Canada, it's just, the rocks just seem massive. This is from Canada. So the rock formations changed a little bit, and the rock faces are a little bit steeper, almost more majestic in a sense. Just a different, a different view as well. So hey, we got just a few minutes. You can ask some questions if you want. My bike, let me tell you my story about the bike. I get asked all the time. It's like, well, what kind of bike do you have? Well, it's a one of a kind. I spent probably 6 months just figuring out what kind of bike I wanted to build for my adventure. And then another 6 months building it and then tinkering with it to get it, because I'm kind of like a bike snob. Once you have something, you start tinkering with it until it just fits just right. But that bike was built just for this ride. I mean, it was a Great Divide mountain bike route, elite machine. But it took a beating. It was just crazy. I'm the mechanic. Like, the guys would never leave me because I'm the mechanic. So I have that in mind. It's like, no matter how bad it gets out there, if we're arguing or something, they were not going to leave me because I'm the mechanic. I was keeping everything together. I'm serious. I repaired a lot of things on the trail because things were breaking on us. My saddle, trying to get back from the saddle was a repair, fixing brakes. I did not have one flat, to be honest with you, not one flat. These bikes don't have tubes in them. They're tubeless, kind of like a car tire, and you put solvent and stuff in it. If you get a hole, if it's small enough, it'll just self-seal. So unless you just put a huge hole in it, you can keep rolling. Like if I was to take that tire off right now, there'd probably be a bunch of pins and stuff in it that were still stuck in the tire that just is sealed. I hadn't had to repair it yet. It's a carbon frame, hydraulic brakes, front suspension.
How do you keep the person that was calling in the car, how do you communicate back and forth?
So, when you're out there, so most of the time you don't have cell phones, so it's not like you can bring up Google Maps and say, hey, which way do I go? So, usually you have a Garmin. A Garmin is a device that goes on your computer, tells you how fast you're going, how far you've gone. You also load maps, and you can offline maps and stuff. So you can use this as a route. So the Adventure Cycling Association is a company that publishes routes. And one of the routes they published was the Great Divide Mountain Bike route. So you could buy their maps and stuff. So I was able to, so you load it. So that's one, but you never just rely on electronics. That'd be a bad thing. They have paper maps, so you can, like I never carried these, there were like 10 of them. They're like this. So I made the other guys carry all the maps because I just didn't want the bulk and the load of my bike. So that's your stuff. I got all the other tools. Your phone, the same thing. You can go offline with your phone. So I was using, the Garmin stuff here. The phone gets stuck on here as well. It has a dynamo hub on the front wheel, generates electricity, so I'm able to keep my phone and my Garmin device charged on the ride. And I have a Garmin InReach, which if I was to ever fall off one of the cliffs, which a lot of times you're riding on the edge and then you look down, and there was no guardrails, so it was just, so if I made a left when I should have gone right, I had a Garmin InReach, which has a little SOS button on it. That's a satellite device, so you would, if I ever got in trouble, push the button and hope they find me before the grizzlies do, right? I mean, seriously. Got just a few minutes. Questions? Chris?
Did you have any communication between the three of you as you were riding, or did you spend 8 or 9 hours just talking to yourself?
I do talk to myself quite a bit, but we would stay together. I'd always have to kind of hang in the back, even though I was faster than them. I was the mechanic, so if something ever happened to them, I needed to be around them so that if something happened, I could help them out. And that's serious. I mean, I was, if it needed to be fixed, I was the guy that would come to it. But we stayed together. Our SAG guy, we would just say, hey, we'll meet you. He couldn't go down the trails that we were on, so he had to make big loops, and we'd meet him at a point and just kind of work it out that way. Every day was different. Like you have a map, but that's not, you always kind of just adjust as you eat. Mike? Oh man, I was like 6,000 calories that I had to. I lost weight. I mean, if you can tell from now and in the pictures and stuff, I was a little slimmer just from that. I probably lost 25 pounds, I think, from the ride, from before and then from other training and then on the ride. So, and you just can't. You can't. If you're working that hard, you just can't eat that much food and make you sick. So, but yeah, it's like I said, you're hungry all the time. That's why that Pie Town is so enticing. I'm telling you. Bill?
You showed in pictures quite a few unpaved roads. How much of your trip was on those gravel roads? That's got to be a lot harder.
80% was actually on gravel, either gravel road, 80% gravel road, 2-track, single track, 20% on a road. Let me tell you, so the road was an hour and a half, 10%. That wasn't any better to be on the road. It was actually worse. I thought I would. You ever go with somebody like you make a turn, it's like, yeah, I'm done, and then they make the turn, it's like, oh, it's still going. Then you make another turn, it's still going. And it's just not right. Hey, Steve.
Where'd you get on your water?
You had multiple bottles. I had a bladder on my frame as well, a water bladder, and then our SAG would have water every once in a while. We'd meet up with them. And then you also have, from hiking, you can purify your own water, so there was rivers and stuff. You could just stop and fill up and keep on going. The water wasn't really a problem when you go up to it, other than New Mexico. New Mexico was a little challenging, right? There's not very much water in New Mexico, but once you get a little bit farther, there's lakes and rivers all over the place, and it's not really an issue. clean.
Are you charging your lights the same way you're charging your battery?
Yes, my lights were hooked up to my dynamo, so I could run my lights off the dynamo when I needed to, and it also had a battery, internal battery, so it would just charge up and I could use them when I needed to. Two.
I missed what you, I didn't realize you had somebody in a car, and did you have to pay them to do that? And then the other question is, did you ever feel threatened by a person? You talked about the animals, but was there anybody ever that you were really had
The question is, did I have to pay? Mary was my, it's like, I'll answer it this way. When I did the Appalachian Trail, I completely caught Mary off guard, and she said, "What are you thinking?" I said, "You kidding?" I said, "Appalachian, where did that come from?" I said, "Yeah, I want to do it." "Have you ever done that?" "No." "Do you have experience doing that?" "Not a bit." "I'm going to do it anyway." Just shook her head. "You're crazy." The Bike Across America, she knew that was coming. So, she supported me in that. She did not support me on the Appalachian Trail. That was not a supported hike. Bike Across, and then the Great Divide, thumbs up. So, did I have to pay? We paid for gas and stuff, but he was a friend. He was one of the gentlemen that rode Bike Across America with us, made us like halfway. So he just wanted to be part of the group. So that's the only way he could really do it. So, but we appreciated, obviously, him doing that. But it turned out to be more than he really wanted to do. So it was a little bit of a, well, he's the one I gave all the instructions to, so he got an earful from stuff. What, safety-wise, did I have any safety issues? No, I didn't.
out there in the world, like there's a lot of, like you said, crazy people, and I just wondered if you ever had an issue.
No, I have not had an issue. You get out to, Colorado and Montana is kind of self-managed. Everybody has like a sidearm and stuff on them, and you don't ever see a police car. I asked one guy, I said, "Well, what if you have a problem?" I said, "We take care of it ourselves." I said, "Oh, okay." And he was true. He was being truthful. So, they watch out for each other. So, but I did not mean anything. Most of the time, when you talk to people, as I did, they're like, "What in the world? What are you doing? Why do you have all this stuff? Why are you on a bike, and why are you doing that thing?" And they were just more intrigued than anything. Hey, Trey.
Did you carry anything to protect yourself against animals or humans?
Other than being faster than the other two guys, that was one strategy. I had bear spray on my bike, so I had a mount for some bear spray that goes on top, so if I ever to pop it off and need it, I did not have to use it because I didn't see one. We did have a dog attack us, and one of the guys got bit, but other than that, I did not have to use my bear spray, so. But I did have it. I felt, here's the truth in that, right? If you look at a YouTube video on a bear attack, they are a grizzly bear. When they attack, they are on you in seconds. So unless you are really prepared, bear spray is not going to help you out much if they're in attack mode. If they're just kind of moseying along and stuff and they kind of come up on you, then you might be able to use the bear spray. So. I can't answer that question, Chris, because Mary said I have to take her on a cruise before I go on my next adventure. So ask me after I have my next cruise, and then I can tell you what my next adventure is. I did have, my friend has thrown out the idea of doing a race across America as a team event, so might be doing that. All right, any other questions? Thank you for letting me share my story and some of my thoughts as well. Hopefully some of the inspiration points were meaningful to you as they are to me, and maybe you can reflect on some of those thoughts as well. So let's pray. Dear Father, thank you for the blessings that we receive through you. We're so thankful as Christians and Christian family that that you love us, you care for us. We're thankful for the grace and the sacrifice that Jesus made for us. We're so thankful as Christians that we can share your love with each other and others, and we know that if we're obedient to you, we will have a home with you in heaven in the end. Thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Yes.
I didn't want to push.